Hello, well, welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in and following my channel. Do not adjust your sound. This is my COVID voice. Yes, I came down with COVID my first time a little less than a week ago. Tested positive with the home test kits. Called the doc and got my prescription of the antivirals, just like the U.S. President's taking. I finished my antivirals. I feel better. Voice will take a while to recover. And also, my energy will take a while to recover. But I wanted to share with you a story that I think you might enjoy about one of the challenges of a fountain pen journey that I've been taking. You see in front of you a pen that's been taken apart, and it's not a classic design, so it doesn't come apart the same way that you might think other pens would come apart. But the challenge that I had, I bought this pen in June of 2019. Yes, over 3 years ago. I expected to make a great video with it because I love the pen, at least aesthetically the way it looks, and I do think the engineering and design is good, but the pen wouldn't write consistently. So I'm going to give you some excerpts of the videotaping that I did.
Here's an example of the writing after I first inked it up, and as you can see, it writes a little bit. It gets dry, it writes a little bit. Inconsistent. And here's the second ink I used, Pelican Edelstein Jade. Writes a little bit, stops writing, writes a little bit more, stops writing. And like I said, it's like the feed runs dry. Again, the best way I can describe it is ink is not flowing smoothly from the converter through the feed to the nib, and I can't take it apart to try to fix what might be the problem. You know, sometimes reverse writing, if there is some issues with a nib in contact with the feed, but I've looked at this under a loop and everything looks right. But it's just very inconsistent writer, and this is frustrating. So
I bought this pen because I was impressed with the ones that Waskisquirrel had, the Centropen. Great finish, as he says. Beautiful colors. I think that the ergonomics, everything else is good. His has good nibs. So that's why I ended up buying this pen, and the price was great. And as we look at some of the original video, I will show you the auction and everything else. But now we need to put this pen back together. And it took me 3 years to be able to pull the nib and feed. I flushed, I did everything that I normally would do. I thought maybe it was an unscrew unit, but I don't think it is. And I eventually put some Monteverdi ink in it because that has that ITF, which is some type of lubrication system. Here's a description of it. And after letting it set for almost 2 years of doing that, I eventually said I need to work on the pen again, so I did some more flushing and no ink came out. So I figured, let me see if I can pull the nib, and the nib pulled right out. So that's the nature of pens, fountain pens. That to me is why there's so much of a joy as much as a frustration. But you got to stick with it. You got to understand what you're doing. You got to have a little bit of a feel. It's a gut feel. Kind of like when you're a mechanic and looking at something and trying to fix it. You have no idea what's wrong or what it is, and then you just have to keep thinking, keep tinkering. Hopefully you don't break it before you figure out how to fix it. So let's use the Wayback Machine and go back to the original videos. And I'm going to reassemble this, and hopefully it will write well. Start your journey. I think the problem existed with the feed and the way the nib was positioned on the feed. I felt there was too much of a distance between the end of the feed and the nib, so hopefully when I reassemble it, I can position it where I think it should go. It's a nice narrow slit. This looks like a hand-cut ebonite feed. And what I found interesting was this second slit on the side here, which extends all the way back through. Breather slit, I don't know. It's not something that I've seen before on any other pen. We're going to continue to use this feed. I could probably find a vintage feed that might fit, but let's see if we can get this pen as designed and as made to write like I expected it wrote when it was new. So you may ask, what kind of tools do I use? So I have this collection of very nice bristly wire brushes with some different sizes to them. So I want to make certain that the inside of this section is completely clean. So I'm going to do a lot of brushing, and I have my soapy water solution here. That's what I'm going to use. And of course I will thoroughly rinse it when I'm done. But I've collected a number of different brushes, buy them on Amazon. So you never know, you need that right size with the right amount of stiffness to it to hopefully facilitate a thorough cleaning. I'm going to rinse everything off, dry it with a paper towel. I'm also going to go in here with a Q-tip and put a little bit of silicone grease and lubricate the inside of that piston barrel. I just want to make certain this pen lasts a long time once I put it back together again and don't need to take it apart again. This is my tool that I use quite a bit. Just a regular standard paper towel. I twist it so it becomes small enough to fit into this section. I use this, again, another cleaning exercise. And to me, the whole point of cleaning out a pen like this is to put it back, hopefully as close to its original condition as possible. And you can see it works pretty good, and we don't have any residue left. Nice white paper towel would show up anything. So I'm comfortable I've cleaned it out as well as I can. There might be some keying there, but I'll find that out when I finally go to insert the nib. We're getting close. Needed to bring my LED lights in more closely. This is just phenomenal. I have to admit that Wasky has all my respect and admiration, because I would have just ignored this pen, not even known it existed if it wasn't for him. The cap unscrews, the threads are in great shape. About 1 3/4 turns. It has a steel nib, but for the price I paid for this pen, I'm fine with that. It is a branded nib. And, the seller said they didn't confirm that the filling system works, so you unscrew the cap, you see this classic piston filler, and it works great. There was just a little bit of residual ink in this pen, which I cleaned out very easily. So I wanted to do an as received, well, not exactly as received, but just wanted to show you that this pen arrived, and I think this was the buy of 2019 from my perspective. An incredibly unique pen, beautiful finish, to use Wasky's terms, fully functional and ready to ink up. Now my challenge is to find an ink, put it in here, and put that nib to paper. Yes, I have 10 bottles of this gemstone ink, and this is the color I selected to put into the Centropen. I wanted a light green, and this one certainly fits that bill. Looks nice on the color card. These color cards are not as good as the other color cards I was using. They don't handle ink as well, but they work for identifying the ink. And yes, the color is very similar to this Waterman Tropic Green Vintage ink. Very, very, very similar. Interesting. Probably almost close to 100 years difference between when these two inks were made. So here we are in a little bit of a dark mode scenario. And it's still amazing how this resin just really pops. But But I have a feeling the clear end is actually clear all the way through. So we'll play the LED light on it a little bit of a different look. And let's go inside. We'll see that standard machining in there, a little ledge for this section to seal up against, nice threading. But if we come in with the LED, we'll see it does shine out through the end, which is what I expected on both the cap and the barrel. I'm just impressed with this design, how they incorporated the different elements and used that amazing resin so we can appreciate it. Kudos to Centropen. So now we're back to 2022. Of course, I have some different lighting now. The chatoyancy on this resin is just amazing. The detail, I like the color. I think that clip is a very cute, very nice functional design. It is very springy, but very functional. And that clear end with that little red ring beneath it, which is also mirrored at the bottom of the cap, just really sets off the pen. Kind of reminds me of those ends that they put on the Waterman 100-year pen, but unfortunately they didn't last 100 years. The 3 cap bands are done very nicely. It's just great. I'm very, very happy with this pen now that it writes consistently, which I gave you a little preview of, but we'll look again at the writing. Its section is just right. We give you those dimensions. We'll show you how this nib and feed relationship in comparison to what it was originally. And I think that was a very big contributor to why it just would stop writing, because ink just couldn't make it down from the end of the feed to the end of the nib to get onto paper. So that's the Centropen. And I'm just very, 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 very happy that I was able to snag one. I haven't looked again. Obviously, the writing experience kind of threw me off a little bit, but now that I have it, I'm very, very happy. It's gone into a few letters, so I know it will write consistently. And that's the fun part of it. So let's do a wrap up and another writing sample and call it a day. So one thing that's nice about this model is it's very clearly branded. And that's always a nice thing when the pen maker goes to that effort to identify the pen and allows us collectors to also identify it very clearly. Centropen 10014, and then there's a 353 designation at the end, which might mean something, but I don't know what that is. This ink dries really, really fast, faster than I expected. The nib is smooth. There's a decent amount of feedback, which is not unusual for a nib like this. I like writing with the pen. You know, occasionally pens just settle well with you, and this one settles well. So I don't really rate pens like this, but let's rate this one, just because I'm in the mood. I'm going to give it a 9.7. It gets 2 checks because it's just absolutely beautiful. Well made. Just an amazing resin. All the pieces and things just do what they should do. And it gets 1 check just because it's from Czechoslovakia. So that's the fun part. This is an amazing international hobby that we have, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. which is fun, even with being a little bit under the weather. So thank all of you for watching. I hope you find a pen that you really enjoy and like and thrills you and puts a little smile on your face every time you use it. Hope this video finds you safe, healthy, and happy. I always wish that for everybody, and including myself. If we reach the end, and we're going to say bye. Until the next interesting video. I think we're a little low on ink. You can get some starvation in the feed, but as you can see, it picks right up.